Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to outline the series of steps you will need to take in order to install the software for the Angular workshop. So the first thing we want to do is to check the Windows version you have, because that will determine the installer that you will need to download for all the remaining software. So to check whether you are having a 32-bit or 64-bit version of Windows, what you need to do is you need to go and check for system in your start. So you go down to start, okay, the lower left hand corner of the screen, and you type SYS system, and this should bring up the system here, right? So this settings system, you're looking for settings system. We'll click on this, and then you should see something here that says set system. And if you scroll kind of down here in this about panel, you will see your system type. So here you should say either 32-bit or 64-bit operating system, and I'm going to probably assume that most of you will have a 64-bit operating system, right? So like Windows 11 or the latest version of Windows 10. Okay, so now that we have determined that you have a 64-bit operating system, the next thing we are going to do is to install Node.js. So we are going to use this guide here to walk us through these steps. So let's go ahead to this site here. And the first thing we need to do is to install Node. All right, so Node is basically the Node provides the Node package manager, which we are going to use to download Angular. So we go to node.js, we visit the official node.js page. So we click on here, and this is the official node.js page, and here we can directly already download the latest version of Node, which at the point of this video is version 22.14.0. Now if you see a newer version of Node here, then please go ahead and download the latest version of Node, or if you already have an older version of Node, that should also be perfectly fine as well. Okay, so to download this for Windows, we are going to make sure that you got the right architecture here. So just now, if you had a 32-bit, then you will select x86, and if you had a 64-bit operating system, then you select an x64. So I'm going to assume most of you have x64, so you go ahead and select Windows Installer. We'll click this. This will download the MSI file, the installation file for Windows. We click Save. Okay, and so in the upper right hand corner of the browser, you should see that the installation file has been downloaded. And then I'm going to go back again to my desktop. So assuming this is the downloaded installer file, you can double click on it to start the installation process, and then you will see the installation setup wizard for Node.js. You go ahead and click Next, click I accept the terms in the license agreement, click Next, accept the default folder, which is C/program files/node.js, click Next. And then here there are a bunch of options available for you. All right, and you can go ahead and click plus here to make sure that the Node.js is added to your path environment variable, so you can access it on your command prompt. This should already by default be there, so you won't need to make any additional modifications. Okay, so just double check that and go ahead and click Next. And then it will ask you whether you want to install tools for native modules. So in this case here, we do not need to do this because you're not doing any kind of advanced installation. So we can go ahead and click Next, and then go ahead and click Install to begin the installation process. It will ask you whether you want to allow the app to make changes to your device. You go ahead and click Yes, and the installation will then complete. Okay, and then it will say completed the Node.js setup wizard. Then you go ahead and click Finish. Okay, so that part is complete. The next thing we're going to do is to install TypeScript. Okay, so we are going to go back to the manual that we were working with just now, and now we're going to go ahead and look at installing TypeScript. So TypeScript, basically to install TypeScript, okay, is like this. Okay, so before we install TypeScript, we want to make sure that we actually have Node installed correctly. So to do that, we are going to access the Windows command prompt. So to access Windows command prompt, you go to the start section, so where my mouse is now pointing, and you type CMD. So when you type CMD in the start section here, you will see a match for the command prompt. You click on that. This will open up what is known as the DOS prompt or the command prompt. Okay, so in here we will type a command node -version, add node version, press enter. Sorry, this is not the correct. I think it's node -v, sorry. So we type node -v, press enter, and you give us the version of Node that's installed. So again, at the time that this video was made is version 22.14.0. If you have an earlier version or a later version, that's perfectly fine. We just want to make sure that we have Node installed. Okay, so now that we have had Node installed, the next thing we are going to do is to install TypeScript. Okay, so to install TypeScript, this is the command we are going to type at the command prompt. npm install -g TypeScript. So let's go ahead and do that right now. npm install -g TypeScript. Okay, press enter. This should kickstart the installation process, and you'll say added one package in 1 second. And to double check that TypeScript is installed, we type ts-v. So let's go back here. We type tsc-v. And this tells us that the current version of TypeScript installed is version 5.8.3. So once again, if you have a later version of TypeScript installed, that's also perfectly fine. This is the version at the time that this video was made. If you have a later version, perfectly fine, fantastic, no problem. Okay, now let's go ahead and install Angular CLI, which we are going to use to create our Angular projects. So that's step 4 now. So let's go ahead to this guide here. So to install Angular CLI, we type npm install -g add Angular CLI. Okay, so go back here, we type npm install -g, okay, add Angular CLI, add Angular/CLI. Alright, press enter. And then you'll see this thing kind of turning here like this for a while. It's downloading the packages for the Angular CLI. This might take some time, and after a while you'll see something that says added a certain number of packages, which indicates that the installation process is now complete. Then the next thing we are going to do is to check the version of Angular we have by typing ng --version. So we'll type here ng --version, and here we'll see that we have Angular version 19.2.7. Now if you have a later version of Angular, that's also perfectly fine. If you have an earlier version of Angular, that's also perfectly fine as well. However, for this workshop, we require a minimum version of Angular 17 and above, because the features for this workshop are based on some modifications that were introduced in Angular version 17. So if you have Angular 17 and later, Angular 17, Angular 18, Angular 19, Angular 20, whatever the latest version is, that is perfectly fine. Okay, so once we have confirmed that Angular is installed correctly by typing ng --version, the next thing we are going to do is to create our first Angular project. To do that, we are going to create a new folder on your machine to hold the source code for all the Angular projects that you are going to generate during this workshop. So you can find any folder or you can create your new folder anywhere you want, okay, on any suitable location, but please do not generate your projects directly in your root drive, C drive, okay? So please create a subfolder either on your desktop or anywhere you want, okay, that you are going to use to hold the source code for all the Angular projects. So I have a G drive here on my system, okay, and I am going to create on my G drive. So I have a G drive here. I'm going to create on my G drive a new folder called Angular Workshop. Okay, so you can call this folder anything you want. This is entirely up to you. Okay, here I'm just going to call it Angular Workshop. And now I will just go into this completely new and empty folder, and I will now open a command prompt inside this folder. To open a command prompt inside this folder, I will just click on the address bar here. Okay, so now it changes to blue, highlighting the folder location, and then I type CMD. Okay, CMD in the address bar. I press enter, and this will open up a DOS prompt inside the folder itself. So right now in the Angular Workshop folder, I have a DOS prompt open, and now in this DOS prompt, I am now going to type this command to create a new Angular project in that folder. So I'm going to type ng new binding demo. Binding demo is the name of the new Angular project. So I'm going to go back here. Okay, I'm going to type ng new binding demo. Press enter, and this will kickstart the generation of a new project, and it will start off by a prompt asking you which style sheet format would you like to use. Okay, so here we are just going to select CSS. So leave the default CSS, press the enter key. It will ask you, do you want to enable server-side rendering, static site rendering? Okay, again, you just press enter to accept the default of no, and now it's going to start installing the packages and generating the template for a new Angular project. And this process will take anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes depending on the speed of your internet connection. Alright, so we'll just wait here for it to complete installation. Alright, and now you can see it says packages have been installed successfully. So the new project folder has been generated for our new Angular project with the name of binding demo. Okay, so now we are going to change into this directory, into the root project folder from the current directory by typing cd binding demo. So again, back to the DOS prompt, I will change into the folder of this project by typing cd and binding demo, press enter, and now I should be in the root folder of this project called binding demo, right? So you can see binding demo is the last portion of the path structure here, and now in this particular root folder of the project, I will start the Angular development server by typing ng-serve. So back in the DOS prompt, we type ng-serve, press enter, and you should see a bunch of messages coming out. And finally at the end, you should see something like this, and it should tell you or give you a URL here where you can access the Angular web app that's been served up from the development server. So you can see here that the web app, the Angular web app, is accessible at this particular URL, http /localhost:/4200. So if we go back to our browser and we type localhost 4200, okay, localhost 4200, we press enter, you should see a web page that looks like this, and this is basically the default web page that is served up for a new Angular app. Alright, so every newly generated Angular app has a template which includes a default web page like this. So if you see this, when you type ng-serve, it indicates that the project has been created successfully and the development server is running correctly. So at this point of time, you can end the live development server, and we can continue to move on to the next steps of the installation phase. So to stop the development server, you type Ctrl+C in the terminal window or the DOS prompt that it is currently running in. So if you want to stop it, you go back here, and you just press Ctrl+C. Okay, maybe press it a few times, and then you will go back again to the DOS prompt. Okay, so once you see the DOS prompt coming out here, it means you have stopped the development server. And so if you go back now to this page and you refresh this page by pressing F5, you will no longer be able to access the web app, and you will get a message like this. So if you get a message like this when you're at localhost 4200, this means the development server has stopped running. Okay, and you are no longer able to see the web app. So to start it up again, we type the same command ngserve, and typing ngserve will start up the development server again. We'll see the same bunch of messages coming out, and then as usual we'll see at the end the URL http localhost 4200. And so now if I return back to my browser and I refresh it, I will be able to see the web app being served up again from the development server. Okay, so at this point of time, we have created our first Angular project and we have started the development server successfully within the root folder of this project. Let's go on to the next steps of the installation. So we will need an IDE to write our JavaScript or TypeScript code for Angular. Okay, so the most popular IDE that we are going to that developers typically use for writing Angular code is basically Visual Studio Code. So you can click on this link to go to the page for Visual Studio Code, and if you don't already have it or you haven't already downloaded Visual Studio Code, please go ahead and download it. So we'll click here, download for Windows. Okay, and this will kickstart the downloading process, and it will prompt you for a location to download the exe executable. So let's say I save it to my desktop. I'll go ahead and click save here. Okay, and then once it's saved, okay, I'll go back to my desktop. So let's say this is my exe installable that was just downloaded. To install, I just double click it and it will come out with a setup wizard like this. You go ahead and click I accept the agreement, click next, and then there'll be a whole bunch of things that will come out. You can just accept the defaults for all these checks here, click next, and then ready to install, click on install, and then you'll say setup is preparing to install Visual Studio Code, and then you see a progress bar showing the installation process. Okay, so the installation is done, and if you click finish, you should probably see Visual Studio Code start up, and it's going to look something like this. Okay, so that's Visual Studio Code, and if you check on your desktop, you should also see that well, okay, I don't think there's an icon here, but you can add an icon if you want to your desktop, or shortcut to Visual Studio Code on your desktop to start it up quickly. Otherwise, if you want to start it up, so let's say I close it now. If I click here X to close it, to start it up, you just go to your start search box here in your lower left hand corner of Windows, and you just type Visual Studio Code, and you should see a message or a match for this app, and you can just click on this to start up Visual Studio Code. So that is basically the IDE that we'll be using for this workshop. Okay, next we're going to install Notepad++ because we also need to use a text editor as a supplement to Visual Studio Code as our main IDE. Okay, so I would recommend you use Notepad++ rather than the standard Notepad that comes with Windows. So to download Notepad++, you click on this link here, and then you go to this site here, and this gives you an option to download Notepad++. So right now, at the point of time of recording of this video, the latest version is 8.7.9. By the time you are going through this installation video, this version would probably have been more updated. So it doesn't matter what version it is, just click on download. Okay, and down here what you want to download is the installer itself. So you just go ahead and click this one here, the installer. Okay, so this is for a 64-bit operating system. If you have a 32-bit operating system, then you click this one here. Okay, so for a 64-bit operating system, you're going to click this installer here. Okay, that's going to just download it. So you can select where you want to download it to. So let's say we're downloading it to desktop. Go ahead and click save. And then once Chrome shows that it has been downloaded, you can head back again to your desktop. So assuming that this is the installation executable for Notepad++, we can go back here, double click on this. This will kickstart the installation process. Okay, so you will have the installer dialog box coming up. Go ahead and accept all the defaults. Okay, so install in English, click next, click I agree. Okay, so, accept the standard destination folder, which is C/program files notepad++. Click next, and then accept all the standard options. Click next, and then if you want, you can click this to create a shortcut on the desktop. Okay, if not, you can just leave this unchecked. That's up to you. And then go ahead and click install. Okay, I already have Notepad++ running on my machine, so I'm going to just close Notepad++. You probably won't have this message, so it doesn't matter. And then it will then install, and then when you're done, you click finish, and that will open up Notepad++, and Notepad++ kind of looks like this. Okay, I've already installed it on my machine, so that's why I have a whole bunch of other things coming out here. But you will probably just see this change.log, which is the latest changes to the latest version of Notepad++. So if you can open this up, this means Notepad++ is now running on your system. And to close it, you can click on the X here. And then to open it again, you can go to the lower left-hand corner of your Windows. In the search box, you type Notepad++. You should see the icon for this app coming up. You can click on this, and that will start it up. Okay, so that's Notepad++ done. And the last thing we need to do is to install 7-Zip, which is a compression and decompression utility that provides better functionality than the standard Windows zip. So the reason we are not using the standard Windows zip is because for an Angular project, the number of files in a project folder that need to be zipped are really large, and the Windows zip doesn't perform very well. So we are going to use a open source zip utility called 7-Zip instead. So we're going to install this. So to install this, we'll click on this link here. This will lead us to the installation website. So for us, we are going to click this download here. Now the current version at this point of time is this. It may have become more advanced since then. It doesn't matter. We just download the latest version. So we download the version for 64-bit Windows. If you have a 32-bit version of Windows, then you download this. So assuming you have a 64-bit version of Windows, we'll click download here to download the exe file. Then again, we click save. Alright, so in Chrome, we should see that this exe file for the installable has been downloaded. And now we can just go back to our desktop. Okay, we'll drag this thing over here. This is my installable that I just downloaded. Double click that to start the installation process. And then go ahead and just accept the defaults for the installation wizard. So we go ahead and click install. And then we click close when the installation is complete. Okay, so how do you know that you've got 7-Zip installed? Is that if you right click on any icon or thing or any item here, you will see a additional entry for 7-Zip in your context menu. Alright, so in Windows, if you right click on any icon, for example this icon here, in the context menu that appears, you will see an option for 7-Zip, and you see a bunch of actions associated with the 7-Zip application. So that is how you know that you have got 7-Zip installed. Okay, so with that, we have completed the installation for all the software required for this workshop. And if you have any questions or any problems that you encounter during this installation phase, please contact me at this email address here. Okay, thank you all so much for going through this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the actual workshop.